let's have that conversation with the woman born from that girl, right? Yeah. So she's sitting here, Anu Adasolum. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The little girl whose ambition was to solve Nigeria's power problem.
How's that working out?
We're trying. I think oftentimes people don't understand the full complexity of the country's power problem because of the history behind it. And it seems simple. It's like, especially because you have power generation in your home, you just think, just hook me up to the grid. But it's actually a fairly complex problem. Nigeria isn't the only country that has it, but we have it on a scale like much wider than most countries. And I think generally it's recognized that the solution now is more off-grid. I think not just in Nigeria, globally, but the idea is to have lots of companies and private institutions addressing each economy or mini economy's needs, as opposed to trying to fix the grid because of the complexity of the issues. Yes.
Now, what kind of license did you require to do what you're doing?
That's actually a very good question. So Nigeria has actually quite good licensing regimes compared to the rest of the world in terms of for small-scale energy production, anything less than a megawatt. But we at Rensource, we didn't actually have extensive licensing requirements because of the type of energy that we generate. Okay. So our energy is distributed in dense clusters, like for instance, a big market, let's say a market with 10,000 traders. So we generate throughout the market and distribute throughout the market. So we fall under that threshold, and under that threshold, the 1 megawatt threshold, you don't need licensing.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But when you say you generate and distribute within that kind of threshold, how is it like with the people who are the end users? How quickly are they buying into this?
So, you know, it's very easy to forget that everybody is already generating power. So you have those little generators.
I pass my neighbor.
Yes, exactly. So they're already consuming power, but they're consuming extremely unhealthy power. It's polluting the environment. It's loud, and it's expensive because you have to maintain them, etc. So the demand is actually there. And we
without a doubt.
And we replace all the appliances with energy efficient appliances. So if you use a fan that has high power consumption, we'll give you a more efficient fan and everything. So the demand is there, and they can our consumers can pay as they consume. So you can choose your power plan, and you can choose how long you want to pay for. You want to pay for a day of power, you want to pay for a week of power, you want to pay for a month of power. So we try to create as much ease around the process as possible for them. And so as a result, they've been pretty welcoming. You try to engage the community as soon as you begin the installation process. And so by the time you're actually supplying the power and ready to commission, you have a lot of buy-in.
This is becoming very interesting. You mentioned a market, for instance. Those are the kinds of little projects that you do. Have you had any demand from, say, an estate?
Yes, there's a lot of demand from estates, commercial users, commercial and industrial. We also do commercial and industrial consumers. Okay. And what you try and do is, because there's a high upfront capital cost, a high upfront infrastructure cost, what you're trying to do is make sure the use case can give you your returns over time. Okay. As long as you're sure of that, you can power that use case.
Approximately how much does one pay for your power?
It completely depends. So it's very custom in the sense of the pricing. Although we as a company focus on large-scale use so that you can standardize the delivery as much as possible. But what you're trying to do is cost it below what the consumer is already paying. But in order to do that, you have to understand the use case and design for that. So for instance, if your air conditioner now is using a lot of power, I'm going to get you an air conditioner that is using less power. Okay. But
you're going to get me. What does that mean?
So I will cost it into your supply such that over time I'm recouping my cost, but I'm still giving you that convenience.
So you take my air conditioner away?
That's an example. It depends on the use case, but yes. So it'd be replaced with a more efficient air conditioner that's using less power. Yeah. And then all of that goes into the cost of what we're doing. So the cost of the PV modules, the cost of the inverters, you bring that all together and then you look at what you will pay, let's say per week or per month over time. And my returns need to surpass obviously my capital costs. And then,
of course.
Yeah.
And these are all solar.
Yes. So sometimes it's solar hybrid, but solar is the base. Solar is the base load, and then there's storage with lithium batteries or the most efficient batteries you can find.
The question that many will ask is, considering the power crisis or power situation in Nigeria, do you think renewable energy or renewables are the way to go? Can it solve that?
I do think so, for many reasons. Firstly, Nigeria has a lot of land, a lot of unused land. For instance, there's desertification in the north. We have projects 1 megawatt, 2 megawatts, and in Nigeria, we are a big company. But if you go to Dubai, you're looking at 100 megawatt, 200 megawatt projects at once, but they feed to the grid. If we can't feed to the grid because of the transmission problems, then the solution is in supplying the consumer directly. The issue is that because of how little most companies in Nigeria are, that's most solar companies, they can't solve that problem. So now Rensource, what we're trying to do is look at how can we help companies achieve the kind of scale we've achieved through fundraising and providing them capital and other resources and tools so that they can also develop and supply consumers and have that end impact. So, for instance, if most people want to get solar in their home, they're going to call a small-scale installer, right? Yeah. Who's going to come and install maybe 3.5 kVA system, as most people think of it. We would rather say our equipment cost is way lower than that because we are buying maybe 1 megawatt worth of inverters at a go. Our procurement cost is way lower than that. How can we enable that installer to supply you maybe 10 kVA or 20 kVA of power at a very accessible cost and help them be more professional so that that system can scale all over the country? So instead of buying a diesel generator, you can have a professional solar installer come to you and give you a large amount of power and storage, which you can pay for over time. So I think these are the kind of solutions we need in Nigeria. The problem is not that solar and renewable energy and other clean forms of energy cannot solve our problem.
Are you sure the power guys, the players in the power industry, are going to let you thrive? Won't you be in competition?
In theory, yes, but you'd be surprised how many, even if you look at oil and gas, which are the obvious, how many know that this is the future. So a lot of oil and gas companies come to talk to us, it's the future. There's really no way around it. Right now, solar at scale is actually cheaper than other forms of supplying the grid in other parts of the world. So the issue is, how do we bring that to play in Nigeria? The problem is it's now more a business problem in the sense of financing and availability to people with the ability to install than one of there isn't support. Even the government, to be honest, is now quite supportive because I think they recognize that with the limited funds they have, they need private capital to take us to the next level in Nigeria.
Now, if, for instance, I wanted you to come and supply me with power, take me through the process. What do I have to do?
In your home?
Yes, in my home.
So Rensource wouldn't do your home, for instance.
Wouldn't do my home?
No.
Okay, but it would do, if I lived in an estate, for instance, yes, and I got everybody to buy in, would you listen to us?
Yes, of course. So we would, one of our engineers, or depending on the size, a team of engineers would come down and we would do an audit of your consumption. So what type of appliances do you have? When do you use them? So we'd install special types of meters that track your peak usage, your bottom usage, etc. And then we'd run a financial model to see what you're paying for power now. And then we see, okay, how much do we need to come in at? How much do we sell to you, depending on the use case, either per kilowatt hour or per period of consumption, to make you comfortable. Then we see what changes we need to make it feasible for our type of solution, and then we'd advise you of that. Then we raise capital. We work with a lot of infrastructure investors to provide that equipment, and then it's you repay us over time. So we would sign a contract and agree the period for which you would. Payment
over time will be how long?
It depends. It depends. So for instance, in the markets we're in, you're talking 10, 15-year contracts. With smaller consumers, it really depends on what the consumer wants. So for instance, some consumers, there might be a procurement element to the equipment because you would know that if you are going to buy a new generator, for instance, you would pay an upfront cost and you're paying diesel over time. Whereas with this, you might say, okay, I want to pay 25% of the cost upfront, and then so it's very variable because we are playing with larger scale consumers. But what we're trying to do is enable smaller scale installers who would power your home, just charge you a fixed cost over time. So if now, let's say you're paying in your home 20,000 naira worth of diesel every month, we're trying to enable it such that someone could come to us, to Rensource, a smaller installer, and say, procure from us. We might even finance them, give them the tools to do the invoicing, deal with you, do the customer service, and we can monitor systems remotely and see what the operations and maintenance needs are and advise them of that, and then they can deal with you directly. And when you have something like that, you can really take it at scale across the country.
So you could actually pay way less than 20,000 a month.
Exactly. That's
Depending on how
it.
to use.
Now, give us a sense of how much these market women are paying.
Because
I want you to give us a cost.
Okay, I understand. It depends on the market. We're in multiple states. We're in Kano, we're in Lagos, we're in Edo. So we're in a lot of states. So
Here's Lagos.
in Lagos, one of the markets, you might pay anything from 500 naira a week to, for some of the big guys, might be paying 4K a week. Yeah.
500 naira.
The bigger shops.
Okay, 500 naira a week
Yes.
to 4K a week.
It
And you're
depends.
guaranteed 24 hours per hour.
Well, the markets don't run 24 hours, so during their opening times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you deliver this through micro utilities, you call them.
Yes.
What does it cost to build one micro utility?
A lot.
Okay.
It depends. I mean, you have markets that are 250 kilowatts. We have markets that are like 2-3 megawatts. So you can't really compare the cost because the way it works is obviously the larger the market is, the more the unit economics come down. And also there's no standard shop size. But it can be anything from thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. We've done the full range.
Okay. I asked this question earlier. You moved it to the oil industry players. I asked you how those who are operating in the power industry.
What do you mean by the power industry?
Okay. The discos, the gencos and all of that. How have you been able to relate with them as regards selling your product and them also selling their product?
I'll be honest, it depends on the state you're in. It depends on the state you're in. Certain states, the discos there are antagonistic. They don't like it. Even though the legal structure allows players like us, because we have willing buyer, willing seller regime in Nigeria, which is great. Even though that's there, some of them, they take it the wrong way. Whereas you have some discos that are actually, they want a partnership. It's like, okay, we have the ability to power this area. You guys come and do here. And they just want their consumers served. So it's like, as long as people are receiving power and they're able to deliver and ensure that there's power, then some discos don't mind because they actually recognize that
They can't
we
give
have limited
power
power
to everybody.
But in some states, it's very difficult. I mean, we haven't had any court cases, but they've taken some people to court. It depends. I think more broadly, what matters, because the legal environment is complex, but what matters is how much government is supporting it. And you do have some agencies such as the REA that are really pushing for off-grid power because the focus is just to get power to people. And in that way, we've been able to move quickly.
Okay, but now, so you're talking Rensource and what you're doing and what you think should be the future. But there are many other people that are doing about the same thing. So what makes yours different?
I don't mean to sound funny, but there are not many other people. I think
Really?
there are a few companies that are playing in the off-grid power sector at some scale. They are not many. You have many mini-grid companies, I think, but those are a different kind of scale and a different type of area. They're rural economies. The economics are different. We don't do that. We're very urban. For Nigeria, not globally, but for Nigeria, our projects are large.